What's up, losers? I am Luke, and this is Luke Loses. Now, being a loser, that's a good thing, because we are losing the weight, we're losing the unhealthy lifestyle, and we're losing the negative image we have for ourselves. Please remember that I have no fitness or nutrition education. Everything I talk about here is from asking people questions, searching the internet, and my own personal experiences. You can check out my website. It is lukeloses.card.co. That's got all my social media platforms, as well as other platforms you can find this podcast. I also have the loser line. That is 323-920-LUKE. 323-920-5853. Give me a call, leave me a message, give me tips, topic ideas, whatever the case may be, and I will play it on one of my future episodes. The music that you are hearing right now is by Jake Simmons and the Little Ghost. If you want to hear more of them, check them out on Spotify, YouTube. You can also go over to bandcamp.com and buy all their records, including vinyl. If you like this song that you're hearing right now, you'll love the rest of their stuff, so go check them out. As for my episode today, I'm super excited about it. I interview Coach Corey Little. He has a podcast called The Real Life Weight Loss, and he is amazing. Throughout the whole interview, I had to keep putting myself in check because I thought I was listening to one of his episodes. It's just full of education, and we had a good time doing it. I'm looking at his website right now as I'm recording this, and there's a little bit of fun facts and boring section on his website. And it's got some awesome information, talking about his gold medal at the Junior Olympics, second place in World Championship. He's been on ESPN, and he's only finished outside of the top two twice. And if you scroll down a little bit more, he mentions Ric Flair, the professional wrestler, gave him a shout out on Instagram for his water skiing skills. So next time I talk to him, I'm definitely going to ask him about that. But let's jump right into the interview. Again, I'm super excited for everybody to hear this. So here we go. So today on the show, I've got a guest I'm really excited to talk with. He has a degree in nutrition science. He has been a certified trainer since 1998. And according to his website, he is a down-to-earth, donut-loving weight loss specialist. The host of the Real Life Weight Loss podcast, Corey Little. Corey, how you doing?
I'm wonderful, man. And I do indeed love donuts. And you mentioning that 1998 makes me sound old. I've been a trainer for longer than maybe some of your listeners have been alive.
Just experience. That's like wine, it's better with age.
I appreciate that. I'll take it. I'll take the experienced, seasoned. That's better than feeling old.
So you want to tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe a backstory and what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So even though I like to think my Southern accent maybe has fallen off a little bit, most people can probably tell that I'm from the southeastern United States. I was born and raised in a small town in Georgia, and I was raised eating a ton of traditional Southern fare, like fried everything and sweet tea and, every single function that we had at church or with the family or whatever, everything centered around food, as maybe you or some of your listeners, can can connect with. It's like somebody died, we ate food. We were celebrating, we were eating food, everything, food was around everything. And so that's how I was raised. And then I kind of became the weirdo when I got into high school because I played basketball. And when you played basketball, they put you into weight training. So I began working out, and I just really started to enjoy working out, and my body started to change and to get stronger. And then next thing I knew, I fell in love with the sport of bodybuilding. And in case you don't know what bodybuilding is, I jokingly like to say it's a beauty contest from the neck down. It doesn't matter at all what you look like in the face. They're just judging your body based off like the muscularity, the symmetry, the leanness. Like if you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his heyday, in his prime, that's what bodybuilding was. So here I am, I'm this like 15, 16-year-old kid in this tiny little town where everything centers around fried food and sweet tea and buttery casseroles. And I decided that I want to compete in bodybuilding. And then the more I dig in and read about it, because there was no Google back then, there was barely even an internet back in 1994, 95. The more I dig in and read, I realize like nutrition and food, the foods I eat or don't eat, are so incredibly important. And then I begin to kind of experiment and change my foods a little bit. And I see a dramatic difference in the way my body looks and the way my body feels and in my workouts. And then at the age of 17, I competed in my first bodybuilding contest and I won. And this was with me coaching and training myself through the entire process, because there were no bodybuilding coaches or trainers in my tiny little town. And I was blessed to have a very successful career for about 10 years in the sport of bodybuilding. I competed in one world championship, 2 national championships. I won a gold medal at the Junior Olympic Games, and I only finished outside the top 3 once. And so I was just, like I said, so thankful, so fortunate to have that career in bodybuilding, but also to be a little bit of a weirdo, in that typical Southern culture. But don't worry, every chance I got, I still enjoyed the food. I still love the food to this day. But realizing the power of food and the power of nutrition, when I went to college, it was a no-brainer. I was like, I'm going to study nutrition. I started with a degree in allied health because I wanted to get an overall view of how the body functioned and to kind of get a peek inside the science. And then I dipped even deeper into the nutrition world with my degree in nutrition science. And then when I came out of college in the year 2000, I was fired up and super excited to help people transform their lives. I had my degrees, I was a certified trainer, and it quickly hit me that I wasn't really very good at it. And I didn't know why, right? Because I was a bodybuilder. Like, I knew how to transform someone's body. I'd done it to myself over and over again. I'd won these contests. I had a room full of trophies, but I couldn't help other people do it. I had a very low success rate, and I was positive and optimistic and motivational, but I just couldn't get them to do the stuff they needed to do. And then when I was 30 years old, I had a life-changing experience. I had a pretty nasty back injury, and I had a bacterial infection in the lining of my stomach that it took doctors about 2 or 3 months to figure out. So just like that, I went from like Mr. Fitness bodybuilder, strongest guy in any gym I walked into, to losing a ton of muscle and gaining a good bit of fat. And the problem is I didn't know what to do about it. And around the same time, I had gotten married, and I didn't want to go back to those extremes that I was doing with the sport of bodybuilding. And then it hit me like, wow, this is exactly how my clients feel. They don't want those extremes either. They're married and they have a life. They don't want to do that crazy stuff. And that's the stuff that I was giving them. And that's one of the big things, and we'll get into this more later, but like, it's one of the things that I think is so wrong with the current diet and fitness and weight loss culture today. It's broken and it's toxic because you have all of these people who are like I was then, who are, fitness experts and gurus, and they're professional lifters or bodybuilders or, fitness competitors. And then they're trying to teach other people, just average, regular Joes and Janes who aren't, weightlifters or competitors. They're trying to teach them the same principles that they use, the same extreme strategies and approaches that they use. So I realized at that point, that's not what's going to work. And then the other thing that I realized was this: it didn't matter how much I knew about nutrition. It didn't matter how much I knew about exercise. If I couldn't get people to actually do the things that would help them, then it's useless. The knowledge I had and everything that I could teach them, the knowledge I could teach them was worthless if I couldn't get them to apply it. There was this huge chasm between having the knowledge and applying the knowledge. And so for the past, 7 or 8 years, I completely shifted my focus from nutrition and exercise science to psychology, and to how I can create a system, create an approach that will help people to actually take the things that will help them in day-to-day life and implement them into their day-to-day life. And through all of that, I realized, and this is one of the things we'll talk about, that in order to change your body, you must first change your brain. That's at the core of everything. We have, like, the one thing that has the power to change everything else is our brain. Yet we still go about it backwards. And that's what the diet culture teaches you today, is to change what you eat and change how you exercise if you want to change your life. No, if you want to change your life, you change your brain. And then your brain will eventually change how you eat and change how you exercise. And that will eventually change your life. So that's a little bit of my story, probably more than you or your listeners care to know.
No, I love that. And like, one thing I really love about your show is it's, you don't have an agenda to sell. You're not trying to force your program or whatever you do down our throats. You cut through the crap and you talk to real people about getting healthy. And one thing you say on your show is it's not about losing weight, it's about gaining life. And that's exactly what it is. Like, I've talked in a different episode, I interviewed my wife, and she told me I could be 600 pounds if I'm healthy. And that's what it is if I can be a good dad, and, an active dad, an active husband, and do things that I want to do, that's what it's about. Like, for years I was like, man, I want to be a freak. I want to walk sideways through doors and be huge, but what is that going to give me? I've seen these guys, like the big time bodybuilders, that, it's hard for them to, they'll get something on their back. Somebody will put a sticker on their back and they can't get it. Like, I just want to be healthy. And we're going to talk about mental health today. That's one thing I absolutely love talking about with my show. And because, mainly men, we don't talk about our struggles enough. There's that cloud over us where you're a man, you're manly, don't show weakness, don't show emotion, don't, any of that. So that's why I like talking about it so much, is to open it up to people to know that it's okay to have these thoughts, and it's okay to be emotional. And
can I jump in and on one or two things you said there?
yeah.
So I think you brought up so many incredible points, and I just wanted to touch on a few. One is that you said, I used to want to be as big as a house, and you meant like muscular, right? Like
Yeah.
a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have to walk through doors sideways, right? Yeah. So here's the crazy part. See, that's the thing that I feel like is somewhat unique to me and my story compared to some other people out there, is that, and I'm not saying I'm better or anything like that. Not at all. Not at all. Like, it's just different, is that I've been there. Like, I have a room full of bodybuilding trophies. I've won a gold medal at the Junior Olympic Games for bodybuilding. I've had my body fat down to 3%. I've done photo shoots for magazines. Like, I've been there, and I've coached a ton of bodybuilders in fitness and women who compete in fitness and figure events. And like, here's what I know that a lot of people don't see. The general public thinks, oh man, just like you did, right? The general public thinks, if I could just achieve that, then my life would be what I wanted it to be. Then I would be happy. Yep. Then I would be confident. Then I could feel sexy. Then I would, accomplish everything in life I wanted to accomplish. Like that, I would arrive and I would be there. And here's what I know that they don't know. I've been there. I've talked to and coached other people that have been there. And I can't tell you how many people that I sit across from and coach, or I meet with online and I coach, who are there. They're stepping on stage. They look like the cover of a magazine. And they're, number one, you're miserable, because what it takes to get there with your nutrition and exercise completely wears you out and borderline destroys your body. You're miserable. Number one. Number two, it's not sustainable. Like when you see pictures of people on Instagram or on the cover of magazines and they just look like they look like a freaking superhero, like the picture of like, body perfection. That is a short period of time, man. Like that's what in the bodybuilding world, that's what's called peaking. You peak for like a week. You do all your photo shoots, you compete, and you do all of that stuff. And then afterwards, your body changes again. You cannot maintain that level of conditioning for any period of time. So number one, you're miserable. Number two, it's not sustainable. And then number three, here's the big one that nobody realizes. Some of those people are just tremendously unhappy. I've coached people and sat across from them, and they're ready to get on stage. They look like the cover of a magazine, and they are in borderline tears, and they're like, God, my thighs are just so fat. Or, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this contest. Oh, I just have so much more work to do.
Yeah.
And that perfectly drives home my central message: to change your body, to change your life, to gain life. You must first change your brain, because everything filters through your brain and your emotions and your perceptions of your world and your body. So that was the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to mention, you said your wife didn't care if you were 600 pounds as long as you were healthy, right?
Yep.
I tell my clients in my coaching group all the time, I'm like, look, I could not care less how much you weigh or how much weight you lose. What I want for you is for you to be healthy and happy.
Yep.
That's it. It doesn't matter if you weigh 350 or 250 or 150 or whatever. And what's so crazy is once people approach weight loss in the right way, and they approach health in the right way, what they discover is that oftentimes they had a number in their head that represented success. So we're just going to pick a number, 200 pounds. Somebody thought, oh man, if I could only get down to 200 pounds, I would feel great and I would look great and it would be wonderful. And what they realize when they do it the right way is that maybe they get to, maybe they get to 215, and, they're like, I'm great, man. Like, I'm so happy with my life. I still get to eat some of my favorite foods. I feel so much better. I have great energies. Forget that last 15 pounds. But see, the diet culture and weight loss industry, it is so obsessed with like getting to that number, reaching your goal. And goals can be wonderful, but I have a slightly different perspective on goals sometimes, because I think they can sabotage us. Because if someone stays obsessed with getting to 200, if that's their goal, then they lose the happiness and the enjoyment of the process. And they lose sight of the fact that, wait a minute, I'm at 215. I'm healthy. My blood pressure is good. My blood sugar is good. I have great energy. I sleep good at night. And I just feel happy overall. Why don't I just roll with this and let go of that freaking number that's haunting me? So, man, I think what you shared in there is so incredible. I just wanted to piggyback with those couple of things. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, that's great. Points that you brought up. My wife, I was telling her, this is my goal. So one thing I do is I want to be 250. That's my end game, right? But I do 15-pound goals. So, and I don't give myself any time. So if this week I don't lose any weight, because from your show, we know that the scale doesn't tell the whole story.
Amen.
So, and you might be a little disappointed in me. I am obsessed with the scale. I get on it every day, sometimes multiple times, and I hate it.
So listen, if we're not careful, I'm going to turn this podcast episode into like a coaching session. I don't want to do that, but do you mind if I ask a few questions related to what you just shared?
Go for it.
So number one, where did you get the number 250?
I've been 280 at the lowest of my adult life, and I was really happy with it, but I still had a little bit of fat that I wanted to cut. So I just figured 250.
Okay, everybody pay attention right here. And you pay attention too, Luke. If we think about what he just shared, 250 is really arbitrary. What you've told yourself for 250 is this: I felt good at 280. I'll feel better at 250. I felt good at 280, but I still had some fat I wanted to lose. So I'm arbitrarily picking 30 pounds. And if I lose that other 30 pounds, then I'll lose that fat that I wanted to get rid of, which may not necessarily be true. It may not. And so we have this, and it's, Luke, it's not just you, man. This is rampant. People get a number in their head, 250, 200, 150, whatever. And they plant it in their head. That's where I want to be. And it begins to represent something to them, when you may be right. 250 may be what's great for you, but it may be that you get to 270 and you're like, God, I feel so great and I'm wonderful. But 250 could haunt you. So I'm happy you shared how you got there. That was my first question. The second question, do you mind if I continue with another question?
Go for it.
I don't want to sabotage this whole episode, man.
No, this is what it's about.
Good. So my second question, you said I'm obsessed with the scale. I step on it every day. Why? Why do you step on the scale every day?
So at the end of every episode I say, stay positive, do the work, trust the process. And I try to trust the process. And I know if I'm eating good and I'm moving more, the process says I'm going to lose the fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I ate good today. I ate good yesterday. I ate good all month. That scale should go down, right? But I want to see it. I have to see it. Oh man, it haunts me because there's been times where I'll get hungry and I'll step on the scale and be like, yeah, I can eat, you know, and that's not healthy. That's not normal, you know, and I know that. And it's definitely, a struggle with it. And I've tried to tell my wife, here, you hide it. I don't know.
So Luke, no, dude, this is incredible, man. Like Luke doesn't know because he's not in my coaching program, but like one of the first things when people come into my program, I'm like, one of the first things is that I say, look, you're not dieting. I want you to stop dieting, stop the diet mentality. And then number two, I want you to stop weighing. And that freaks people out. They're like, what? I joined this program to lose weight. Right. But the scales will work against you, my friend. And Luke, so you said, stay positive, do the work, trust the process, right?
Yep.
Dude, man, I could not agree with that more. That's amazing. And it's so true. But Luke, I love you. And I'm not meaning to call you out, but your day-to-day action of stepping on the scale is in direct opposition to what you say to wrap up every episode.
Yeah.
And because if you're staying positive and doing the work and trusting the process, that's basically exactly, I love those three things, man. That's exactly what I tell people in my coaching group to do. But if you're doing those things, you don't have to step on the scales, because and that's one of the things that I dig into with people is like, why do we feel that need, right? And you already touched on that with like, oh, I'm hungry, so I'll okay, I can eat now. Like, I think people have so many bizarre reasons to step on the scale. And I don't mean bizarre, like I'm not calling people out. Like we all have these habits in our life in some area, but like, I think people step on the scales to feel validated. I think people step on the scales to try to, because deep down they either don't trust the process or they're not trusting themselves. And so they go, I gotta be validated. I gotta build my confidence. I gotta build my trust in this process by stepping on the scale. The problem is, as you mentioned, that I say all the time on the podcast, like the scales rarely tell the truth and they never tell the whole story. I mean, it's just, and if you had been in the world that I was in, where you see how people's fluid balance can change, like nothing to do with body fat or muscle mass. Their fluid balance can change so much over the course of one day. Bodybuilders will lose or gain 5 to 10 pounds of pure fluid over the course of 2 days if they manipulate their nutrition correctly or incorrectly. That happens with real people or with non-competitors all the time. I told the story on my podcast of a lady who had been just really killing it, just doing an amazing job with her. As I like to say, she was tremendously imperfectly consistent. That's I'm a major anti-perfection, but like she was, for about 6 to 8 weeks, she had been tremendously imperfectly consistent. So she had consistency. She wasn't perfect, but she was consistent. She had been great with her workouts, great with her nutrition overall. And at the end of this time, she came to me and she was so dejected. She felt so discouraged. And I was like, what's going on? And she goes, man, Corey, like I stepped on the scales and I've only lost like around 2 pounds, like 1.8, maybe 2.2 pounds. And she's like, she's like, God, that doesn't make sense. My pants are looser. I feel so much better. Like my clothes fit loose. She's like, I mean, her workout pants, like her yoga pants were fitting loose. Yoga pants aren't designed to fit loose. And I was like, okay, that's bullcrap. So here's the beautiful thing with her. We had what's called a DEXA scan. So from about 10 weeks previous to when she weighed, she had done what's called a DEXA scan. And it is like the gold standard for body composition analysis. It tells you body fat percentage. It tells you muscle. It tells you body fat percentage and how many actual pounds of body fat you have. It tells you your muscle mass, how many pounds of what's called lean mass and your bone mineral density, all these things. It's a medical grade scan. It's amazing. So she had one of these, and I was like, hold on, don't be discouraged. You know, you've made progress. I know you've made progress. Go get another DEXA scan. So she got another DEXA scan. She had lost 11 pounds of fat and gained 9 pounds of muscle. So you see that on the scale, when she stepped on the scale, that showed her that all this time over the past 8 weeks, she had only lost 2 measly pounds. And she could have been so disappointed and so discouraged and thrown her hands in the air and said, none of this is working, and I'm ticked and I quit, and then gone and, you know, drowned herself in cake and tears and all that stuff, or ice cream or whatever. But because we had this other data to go, wow, this is, dude, she had not only lost 11 pounds of muscle, she had gained 9 pounds of, or excuse me, she had not only lost 11 pounds of fat, she had gained 9 pounds of muscle. That's a 20-pound swing toward leanness and toward the body that she wanted, but the scales only showed a 2-pound difference. So my point is we looked at this. I get wanting to build our confidence and trust in the process and wanting to build our confidence and trust in ourselves. That makes sense. I completely understand that. But we can't use a faulty machine to do it.
Right.
We can't use a machine that only tells part of the story, that rarely tells the truth and never tells the whole story. We're banking on a liar to help us build our confidence in ourselves and our trust in the process. So, yeah, man, I didn't mean to call you out on weighing every day. We didn't talk about this before the episode, but this is beautiful, man. It's so awesome for you to share that.
One of your episodes, you were talking about a woman who lost 7 pounds, I think it was, and she got that body scan and it was all muscle that she had lost.
Right. Yeah. That was before. Yeah. So she was in my program and I was going off on one of my rants about the scales and trying to really encourage people, you know, to step away from the scales. And I always tell people, look, bury your scales in the backyard, you know, make it like, you know, give them to your best friend and tell them to put them in the trunk of their car and like drive off, you know, like get rid of them. So, and as I was going off on one of these things, a lady who was in my group, she just chimed in and she said, guys, just to back Corey up, you know, I did a program a little while back and I was so jazzed. I was so excited. I'd lost 7 pounds, I don't know, in the first few weeks or the first month. And she had happened to have a you know, an analysis, a body composition analysis. And so she went and got it done again. And she was like, oh, that's great. I lost 7 pounds of muscle. So on the scale, I'm so happy you bring up this point. If she just looked at the scale, she would have been thrilled.
Yeah.
But it was the worst type of loss possible. She had not lost anything she wanted to lose, and she had lost everything she didn't want to lose. She had lost strength. She had lost metabolism. She had lost, muscles are what make us look toned and fit and healthy. It was completely negative.
Yeah, I'm going to try a lot harder to stay away from the scale. I know, like I mentioned, you know, I step on it and be like, well, yeah, I can eat a little bit more, but I've also used it as punishment. If I know I shouldn't have ate this or I overate today, I'll step on the scale and be like, yep, see right there, you know.
Yeah.
2 pounds.
I call that the punishment weighing. Like when people they have the term that I hate so much, the cheat meal. They have a cheat meal one night, you know, on a Friday night, and then they wake up on Saturday and go, well, I better check the damage. Let me see how much damage I did. And they weigh and they see that they're 4 pounds up or 2 pounds or whatever. And it's like, why are you doing this? Like it's like we're lashing ourselves for no reason. And also think about what that does, Luke. When you step on the scale and weigh the next morning, it ingrains in your brain that food that you had the night before is bad.
Yeah.
And food is not bad and good. As long as we view food as bad and good and we categorize food, like we all know we're not supposed to do that with humans, right? I mean, we get that. Like certain people aren't bad and certain people aren't good. We like in America right now, racism's a huge deal, you know?
Yeah.
And we understand like, okay, it's not that this group of people is good and this group of people is bad. You know, you've got good and bad all across, you know, that's not the way it works, but yet we do it with food, and it ingrains thought patterns into our brain that are incredibly unhealthy, because as long as we view food as good and bad, then we are stuck battling constantly mentally between the fact that we are good when we eat certain foods and then we are bad when we eat certain foods. And so it steals our joy of something that is meant to be enjoyed, which is food. Yeah. Man, when I said I love donuts, I don't eat donuts and then feel bad about myself and weigh the next morning. No, I eat donuts and enjoy the crap out of them, guilt-free and shame-free, because if there is guilt or shame associated, then it's not true enjoyment. But the only way we can get to that is once we let go of this idea that certain foods are good and certain foods are bad. So, yeah, man, I'm jumping all over you with the scales and the weighing. I don't mean to do that, man. You know, I love you, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm trying to provide a little benefit.
Well, on the good and bad food, since we're there, that's exactly how I was up until this time of trying to lose the weight, right? So before, I talked about it in a previous episode, I went to a birthday party years ago, and I was on a diet, and when I say diet, chicken and rice, and all day. And my wife tried to give me a piece of cake, and I'm like, no, it'll mess up everything. And there's been times where I broke down and I've got that Reese's candy bar and I've ate it, and I beat myself up, and all the work that I've done for the past 8 months is ruined because I had that one Reese's candy bar. And that's how I was living. And now, like I talked to you before, if I want fast food, if I want that candy bar, I'm going to go get it. I'm just not going to eat it like I used to before I tried to live a healthy life, where I've have, 2 big Reese cups a day and 2, Monster energy drinks, and then McDonald's for lunch and Pizza Hut for dinner. I still get to enjoy all those things if I want them. I just don't do it all at the same time. And like I've said before, is I just try to eat it like a normal person would. And when I say normal, I don't mean, there's abnormal people and normal people, but for me, I'm a food addict and I'm obsessed with food. And when I eat, I eat,
Yeah. So, man, there's just, you share so much wonderful stuff. So I think that what you've just shared and what we've gone over here in the past 15 minutes, 20 minutes is the progression that you'll see people go through. And that is, so you went from a thought process that food was good and bad to progressing to, you know what? No, it's not good and bad. I just want to eat like a normal person, again, like you said, not that there are abnormal people, but like the way you described it, if I want pizza, I'll just eat a couple slices. I won't eat the whole pizza, And the thing that I think that's people miss is that is such a huge part of the process of truly changing our brain and changing our life and changing our body, is that whenever we shift the thought process, whenever we begin to adopt a new philosophy, a new approach, a new thought pattern, is that there are remnants of the old one. And for that, I would argue for you is the scales. So while you can embrace the idea that, okay, the pizza's not bad, the piece of birthday cake's not bad, I'm just going to have a small slice of birthday cake instead of eating whatever, 4 slices, and then, washing it down with 3 soft drinks and, a bunch of chips or whatever.
Yeah.
So while you've moved from that to, okay, it's not good and bad, I just basically moderation, kind of. The remnant that's hanging there for you is the scales, because if you eat that birthday cake, if you guys go to a birthday party on a Saturday and you eat a moderate amount of birthday cake, not too much, and then you feel this urge to step on the scales on Sunday morning to see if you did any damage or to see if your weight's up, that's the same mentality coming back in, creeping back in, just it's manifesting in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So even though and you say in your head, food is not good and bad, I get that. I just need to practice moderation. It's still, you're fighting against yourself with the scale going, wait a minute, I ate, even though you may rephrase it, I ate bad food, but I did good job eating bad food. I ate it in moderation. So, but I still got to weigh myself. I still got to keep myself in check.
Yeah.
And like, I totally get it, man. Like when someone's battled their weight for the majority of their life or all of their life, it's like the scale is the grade, the scale is their, it's, I've got to keep myself in check, and oh dear God, if I don't, I'll gain weight like a newborn baby. but that's not always the case. When you can do what you said earlier, when you can trust the process and do the work, that's not the case. But you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, you said in the past you would feel like if I eat that candy bar, oh man, I just wiped out the past 8 months of progress.
Yeah. Like I don't know why, but in my mind that one slip up just
Mm-hmm.
ruins it all. Like
Does it still feel that way now, or is that kind of a past thing?
no, so my episode that I released when this airs, it'll be a couple weeks ago, but uh to you and I, it was the episode I released on Monday. It's called I Binged, right? And I made a big dinner over, I made more than our family needed, and I kept going back. I kept going back and disappointed, yes. Upset that it happened, yes. The only thing that the only thing how I see it is I have a counter, right? So that's my thing is binge eating. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a counter on my phone that counts my days, which is another thing that it's a mental thing there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think 138 days without binging, and then I binged, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm like 11 days now.
Mm-hmm.
But how I see it is it's a 24-hour thing. If I can make through today without binging, I'm happy. Um, but when I did that binge, like I said, it hurt, it bothered me. I was upset with myself, but it happened. There's nothing I can do. As long as tomorrow I don't binge, or even if I
Mm-hmm.
do, the next day or the next day, as long as I can stay on the road that I'm on to bettering myself, I'm okay. Like I may have made a pit stop, but I'm back on the road and moving in the right direction. As long as I'm
Yeah.
not going backwards, I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy. Um, I want a life. I want to live. That's what it is. And I know the way that I was going, I was digging my grave one spoon at a time, overeating. And if you look at my family, I've got a history of unhealthy. My dad was diabetic. He lost his leg, had a heart attack, and passed away.
Mm.
I had a cousin who passed away and my dad was young, and I had a cousin that was really young, and he wasn't obese or morbidly obese. He was heavier, chubby, but my family's got bad hearts, and
Mm.
I don't want to add to that. 10 years ago, if I died tomorrow, oh well, right? Now I've got family. I've got a wife.
Mm.
I've got kids. I want to be a grandpa. I want to be that old couple with my wife. And one thing I talk about, and I'm gonna release an episode on it soon, is one thing that eats me up is I'm terrified my mother is going to have to bury a child, and I don't want her to go through that. I seen what it was like with my dad. I seen what it was like with her dad, and I couldn't imagine her having to bury a child. Like I don't want her to have to go through that. And that's a big part of my why. Like my wife was telling me, she can't be my motivation. And I 100% agree. She can't be my reason. But for me, it's I want to be here with them. I want to be here long enough to enjoy that life with them. But
Mm-hmm.
they're not making me do this. I want to do it for that reason of myself. And,
Yeah.
and back to the happiness. If I can lose the weight, I can be happy. Right. Uh, I want to live a healthy life. I want to live a long life. I don't want to, I want to be a long time before I, go down.
Yeah. No, man, that's beautiful. And I just love, you and I talked about this before, we started recording, but man, I just your vulnerability and authenticity and courage to share everything you just shared, and the other stuff that you share on other episodes of your podcast is just incredible, man. And I salute you. I commend you. This is real stuff, and it's there's a intimate connection. It's like a big, you know, it's a big tangled web between our food and our weight and our emotions and our body image and our life experiences and all these things. And that's the thing. Like, I hate to keep coming back to it. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but to change your body, to change your life, you've got to change your brain. You must change your brain, because your brain and your emotions is part of all of that. And if we don't begin to untangle that and get to the root of it and get to the source to some degree, then we're doomed to repeat the same patterns. You're doomed to, lose and regain that same 50 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever. You're doomed to start to get traction, mess up, and then feel like you said, which is, man, I've heard it so many times. Oh, I screwed up. I just ruined all the progress I'd made. No, no, you didn't. Like, you have such a better approach now. I call that the all or nothing on off mentality.
Yep.
And that's one of the huge things that's just so terrible with the whole diet culture and freaking, I'm sorry if I'm about to offend anyone, freaking weight loss challenges. A weight loss challenge will not fix your problem. I mean, if you want to get ready to go to the beach in 6 weeks, then some people can do a weight loss challenge. If you want to get ready for your wedding, and my point is that if it's an event, spring break, a wedding, whatever, then sure, do a 6 week or 8 week challenge, because then you're finished and you're done. But if you want to change your life, if you want to have a better life, a challenge will not do it. So, sorry, that was a little side note there, but man, it's just so incredible how authentic and open you are with everything you share.
Well, I have bad anxiety. And I've talked about that in other episodes, and that's what I love about the podcast is usually when I record my episodes by myself, it's just me. And then when I record with a guest, it's, somebody that's going through it, or has the tools to get me through it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't give me that anxiety like I would if I was talking in front of people or whatever.
Right.
But I love the podcast because there's things that I don't want to say. I don't want to be heard. I'm like, oh man, in my head, that bully in my brain, and all that is don't do it. But I hit publish, and then I can't, I don't get as much anxiety from this than I would whatever the case may be. But I also know that there's people out there that I could potentially be helping. And that's one of the big things is why I want to keep it up is I don't want people to struggle like I did. I don't want people to hate themselves like I did. And I want to love myself as much as I love anybody else.
Yeah.
Back touching on the weight loss challenge, I'm actually running one right now on the podcast.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Well, no, I feel like
it's heard.
I think you might like it. I'm giving myself 3 months to lose 25 pounds. And it's
okay.
So it's 2 pounds a week. It'd be 24 pounds is healthy weight loss, 2 pounds. Right. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. But man. A buddy of mine and myself, he reached out to me and was like, hey, I need to lose weight. Can we just do a weight loss challenge? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I think if whoever loses at first, him and I will get a bag of chicken and some protein powder. So that's what the winner gets. But
that's cool.
We're losing weight, so I think we're both.
Hey man, yeah, and I don't like I come across kind of maybe abrasive sometimes. I hope people can sense that I mean all the best, and it's I'm happy for people to do whatever gets them moving in the right direction. It's just that through my 20 years of doing this, I've seen so many people do this cycle. It's like, oh, they get all excited and all motivated and, they just white knuckle it as long as they can. What they're doing is not sustainable. It's not working to change. It's not working to change them from the inside out. It's not, it's the diet and exercise, the nutrition and exercise is not sustainable. They hate it. They white knuckle it. They don't do anything to change their brain. And then they get great results. And maybe they even do before and after pictures. And that's why I always say, I want to see the after picture. I don't care what you do in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I want to see 8 months later. Because if, as you and I talked about before we started this episode, if you don't keep weight off, what's the point? You know? And so, it's, and the other thing that's not only if you don't keep weight off, what's the point? If you're miserable, who cares how much weight, I'm not saying this about you, just in general, who cares how much weight you lose if you're miserable doing it? Like you mentioned earlier about the birthday party. Imagine you're doing great and you've lost 60 pounds, but you're scared to death to eat a small piece of cake at your child's birthday party. That's not life. That's not gaining life. And like we said, losing weight is about gaining life. It's about finding that middle ground where you're happy and healthy, and you just enjoy the crap out of your life, and you love your body. And I just, most of the time, especially because most weight loss challenges are just completely unrealistic, not like what you're talking about, but you know, that's why I'm not a big fan of those. So I didn't mean to, man, I feel like I put my foot in my mouth. I didn't mean to blast on that.
I know what you're talking about. I've heard it in your show plenty of times where, lose 30 pounds in, 8 days or
yes.
So
can I comment on something you mentioned in there?
Go ahead.
You said basically you have a kind of struggle with anxiety. You feel like you have a high degree of anxiety.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other things that we really miss, or not that we miss, but that we maybe choose not to see, which is, man, if you think about it, like you said, you struggle to hit. I've commended you on how authentic and vulnerable and open you are with all of this and courageous. But the reason I said that is because we have this concept, like we have this idea that, we should be shameful around our food or around our body. Like, what in the world? My wife was so amazing and so courageous. She came on my podcast early on, I don't know, around episode 20 or 30, something like that, and shared about how in college she had an eating disorder. And it took so much courage for her to share that because there's shame associated with that. And for you, like you said, there's shame. Man, what in the world? Like, I mean, almost everyone knows who Brene Brown is now, such a famous researcher on shame, but man, shame is toxic and it's poisonous. And it's so funny when we begin to look at the relationship between shame and anxiety and stress, and then how that impacts our food choices. And then I believe also that anxiety and stress directly play into what, like, the all or nothing mentality. And so, like, not only is all or nothing impacting the way we view our weight loss efforts and the way we approach it, the all or nothing and perfectionist mentality is directly related to anxiety and to our, like, feeble attempts to reduce anxiety. We're choosing all or nothing and choosing a perfectionist approach to try to reduce our anxiety. And then we're also, it's like a nasty 1-2 punch. We're also medicating ourselves with food, like you mentioned at one point, I can't remember if we were recording or not, but you said, man, the food never talks back. The food never thinks bad of me. The food never, berates or belittles me. Like, I can like, the food's always there for me. And so,
it gets me.
Yeah, exactly. It gets me. Yeah. And, so it's just this huge anxiety, stress, perfectionism, all or nothing sandwich that seems to, we've all seen that food, right? That we're like, ooh, that looks really good. And then you take a bite and you're like, ooh, I just kind of wish I could spit this out,
Yeah.
Like, that's the anxiety, stress, all or nothing sandwich. It, from the outside, it's like, oh, I think this will make me feel better. This will help. This is what I need. This will lower my stress or lower my anxiety or what. And we take a bite of it, and then it's like, no, God, this is not good. This is not helping me. And so it's great that you're bringing these things to light. And that's my heart and my desire and my prayer is that I can help people untangle all of that and kind of get to the heart of it.
Yeah. With me, my whole life, I've always worried about what other people think and people that don't matter. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, before we were recording, I was telling you a little bit about my story with my wife and I going out and me being embarrassed for her, or even my kids, dropping them off in the line at school at the drop off. I just want to get out of there as fast as possible because I don't want the other parents to be like, look at this fat dad, and nobody's ever done that. Like, I've one of my episodes I brought up, I think 3 or 4 times where I've heard somebody say something negative. Everything else is in my head. Everything else is me.
I was going to ask you, what do you feel like is at the heart of being so concerned with what other people think?
Yeah. Like, I I project what I'm thinking to other people.
Bingo.
If I dribble something on my shirt, now this person thinks I'm not only fat, but I'm a slob too, because I'm dirty, and nobody thinks that. Like, if anybody thinks anything, it's, oh well, he missed your mouth, like,
Right.
and it's not anything. And I've been a lot better lately. I've been really, I don't care as much what if you were to think negative of me, because your opinion doesn't affect my life. Like, the things that I care about are, like I've said, being healthy, living my life, my family, and my friends. And as long as I'm doing good and moving in the right direction to, help my tribe and my people and living life, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you think I've got messed up hair, if my shirt doesn't match my, my belt or whatever. It's no big deal. I
Yeah,
still get
man.
anxiety. I still have it, but nothing like what it used to be.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think one of the reasons it's nothing like what it used to be is because you identified the source. And like you said, you were projecting what you were thinking about yourself on, well, that must be what they're thinking about me too. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier that, that I talk about all the time on the podcast is the bully in our brain. We all have this little freaking negative voice in our head that just berates us and belittles us and discourages us and constantly twists the truth and lies to us. And, and its whole point is to keep you exactly where you are, to keep you from making progress in life, to keep you from changing or bettering your life. It's to keep you basically discouraged and negative, and the sad thing is, like you said, when we're not careful, when that little voice, when the bully in our brain dominates our thoughts and is constantly bouncing around in our head, well, then it must be bouncing around in their head too. And it must be bouncing around. And that must be how, and then we begin telling ourselves stories. One of the things that I teach in the group is that, there is we have a split second. We think emotions just happen, right? We think, oh, well, of course I'm sad, or of course I'm discouraged because that just happened. That's the natural emotion, but that's not the case. There is a tiny gap between an event, between something happening and then an emotion. There's a tiny gap in there, and that gap is the thought and the story. And it's the thought that either automatically happens and the story that automatically follows from that thought, or it's the thought that we choose and the story that we choose. And when we can step into that gap and take control of that thought, it is a game changer. It changes everything for us, because not only can you do it in, like, you've obviously, kind of experienced this a little bit by just recognizing, wait a minute, that's not what they're thinking. It's what I'm thinking. But let's say that someone did make a comment, or let's say that you step on the scales after a week of really hard work and really, being consistent, and your weight doesn't move or whatever. Any of those things, whatever. Or someone gets gets kind of a nasty email from a coworker or from their boss, or, we can pick a million different things. Someone cuts you off in traffic, whatever. Something happens in our life. When we master the ability to step into the gap, choose our thought, and then choose the story we tell ourselves, rather than just letting some automatic thought and story happen, then when we choose that thought, we are also choosing and changing our emotion. And I don't think I need to tell anyone the incredible, tremendous power that has when suddenly you have the power to kind of choose your emotion, because the automatic emotion might not have even been real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. One thing I want to touch on with all that is, for years, I've mentioned this in a previous interview. Over the years, I've talked bad about myself. I've hated my weight. I've hated, my whatever the case may be. You're not smart. You're not handsome. You're never going to be loved, or whatever. And I started to believe it. Over time, it's becomes what it is that becomes my truth. And
it becomes your identity. Your
yes.
identity is the story you tell yourself about yourself. And if you tell yourself that story enough, you will begin to believe it. And when you believe it, that becomes your identity.
Well, what I've been trying to do is every day I look in the mirror, and I hate looking in the mirror. You know, I have a bad body image about myself. Not so much anymore. I'm working towards it. And to touch on that real quick is I'm nowhere near what I want to weigh. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm, like I said, I'm moving in the right direction, and that means so much, you know, and I think that plays a big part in my anxiety is now I don't think that this person thinks I'm just a fat slob because I'm trying. They don't know it. They don't know that I'm trying to lose the weight, but I do. And I'm projecting that still. But every day I look in the mirror and I tell myself 2 positive things that I love about myself. And I'm trying to do the same thing I did with the negative thoughts, but with positive thoughts. And, you know, hopefully that'll become it. And even if it's little things like, man, your beard looks really good today. Or, you know, I'm balding, right? Your bald spot's not real noticeable today, you know, and that helps me.
I feel it, man. I'm losing my hair too. I got a little bald spot back there, and I'm like, oh geez, like, you know, I have to choose to not let it bother me.
Yeah. And like there is, I mean, accept everything and expect nothing. That's what I try to do. And before I had, you know, this is my list. This is how the day's going to go. And when it didn't, my anxiety's through the roof, day's ruined. But now I don't expect anything. I accept it all. And if it happens, it happens. I'm going to figure it out and move forward.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. And I love what you talked about with the mirror and giving yourself compliments. I've known other people who had body image issues, and after seeing like therapists and counselors, that was actually one of the exercises they gave to them was to stand in front of the mirror naked or in their underwear and to look at them, because some, like you said, some people almost refuse to even look at themselves in the mirror, to look at themselves naked or in their underwear, and then to give themselves compliments, pay themselves at least 1 or 2 compliments. And what you're saying is so true. Number one, that's a powerful exercise, but what you're saying with the self-talk is so powerful and it's so true. One of the tools that we use in my inner circle coaching group is literally self-talk recordings. And it sounds so kooky and it sounds so like, oh my gosh, like so hokey, you know, like stupid motivational stuff. It's powerful, man. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Shad Helmstetter, and he's whole career of research is based off the power of self-talk. And there's legitimate research, like not just one little piece, there's continuing research that shows that what we pump into our ears, literally what we listen to on a regular basis, works its way into our subconscious and kind of becomes our default. And so if think about it, if you're going through your day, Luke, and all you're hearing in your head is the bully in your brain belittling and berating you, well, then of course you're going to adopt that as your default and as your identity. That's what's bouncing around in your brain all day. But if we bring an external voice in and you literally pump something in your ears that says, you know, I'm just making this up. I mean, but you know, I'm confident. I do have what it takes. I'm taking steps every day. I'm blah, blah, blah. And if this is just running in the background, and what's fascinating is Dr. Helmstetter says that the research shows you don't even have to actively pay attention to this self-talk, that if you just have it playing in the background, so you could have on headphones or you could have a speaker in your home, whatever. But if you just have it playing just so that it's kind of, you know, you can barely hear it. I always use the joke of like, you know, if you, let's say that, you know, you go to a gym or something. I just think of a gym because that's where most of my life was spent. And they play a certain radio station, and that radio station plays the same song every day. You may not even like that song, but you hear it every day. And then before you know it, you're humming the tune and you know every single word to that stinking song.
Yep.
That is the power of repetition when it comes to the self-talk. And that's what Dr. Helmstetter talks about. You don't even have to actively pay attention, but it gets implanted into your brain. And then the people in my group talk about it. They're like, oh my gosh, Corey, at first I thought it was so corny and stupid, but I just did it. I just listened to it every day, once a day, sometimes twice a day. And they're like, and then I hit a spot where I would normally spiral downward. I would normally get really emotional about weight loss or food or this or that. And my brain just started bringing this stuff back to me. Boom, boom, boom. Like instead of thinking my normal thoughts that were negative about myself and about this process or about losing weight, my brain went to those other thoughts and those other, affirmations that I'd heard in that self-talk. So it's powerful, man. And what you're doing with the mirror, that's powerful. Like these are all parts of the puzzle,
There's so much that you said in there that I want to touch on. The first thing, doing it naked or in your underwear, right? Mm-hmm. For me, for the longest time, I'm married. I've been with my wife for 8 years now, 7 years, something like that. And we've only been married for almost 2. She didn't see me with my shirt off for a long time because I didn't want to, her rolled over in bed while I'm sleeping and be like, look at this fat guy, or my kids or anything. Like I would always have a shirt on, and that was just me tearing myself down. And I'm so glad I don't have that anymore. I'm not going to take my shirt off and walk around, the fairgrounds or whatever, but it all goes back to that. My wife is not going to do anything to try to hurt me, or she's not going to do anything to try to bring me down. And neither are my kids. Like, why was I so concerned with it? I don't know where I want to go with that.
I'm glad you don't, because I'm probably talking way more than any guest you've had, but I just feel passionately about so much of this stuff. But like what you said is such a beautiful example. Whenever we have a toxic relationship with ourselves, it spills over to impact all the people that we love. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you're talking about, man. Like the people that we think that our friends or family or our husband, our wife, or whomever, our kids, we think that we tell ourselves this story in our head. Again, getting back to that point of how we choose our thoughts and tell ourselves stories. We have this story running in our head that they'll be happier, they'll enjoy life more, they'll be proud of us if we could only look a certain way or get to a certain weight. And that feeds that toxic relationship with ourselves. When in reality, the truth is, they don't care about that. They just, like you said, they want us to be healthy, sure. But what they want is for us to be present, is for us to be there with them, for us to not be embarrassed or ashamed or held back by our emotions around our body or around our body image. So, man, what you shared is such a beautiful thing. I always like to say people think they have an unhealthy relationship with food. I would argue what really is the culprit is that people have an unhealthy relationship with themselves. If you can repair your relationship with yourself, oh my goodness, you are over halfway. You're 90% of the way to repairing your relationship with your food. If you can repair your relationship with yourself, then your relationship with food and your body and exercise will naturally take care of itself.
I like that. Because I say that the healthy relationship with food, and now stepping back and looking at it, I totally see if I could have a healthy relationship with myself, what that could do for me. We've been going at this for quite some time.
I've been burning your ears off, man. I'm sorry.
No, I could have you back again and again, and I know we could never run out of things to talk about. Is there anything you want to add in or touch on before we end it up?
Is it okay if I add a little bit of the stuff that I always add in my podcast? Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that I want you to know, obviously, that you've heard me say, and that I want all of your listeners to know, if you're out there and you're struggling with your weight and you beat yourself up daily and you're sick of dieting and you think, man, this is just who I am and I just can't do it. You don't believe in yourself. Please understand that you can do it. You absolutely can do it. And that I believe in you. I believe in you 100% because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've seen people over and over again. I've seen people go from 500 pounds to 300 pounds and keep it off and have an amazing quality of life. And they stay at 300 pounds and they're happy and they love their life. I've seen people go from, whatever, women who are, 5 foot tall go from 180 to 140 and have an amazing life and love their life and keep it off. And I've seen other people who completely let go of their weight loss goals and just begin to change their brain, and they have an amazing transformation in their life. So my point is you absolutely can do it. Luke, you can. All of the listeners, you guys can do it too. Please just know that. And even if you don't believe in yourself, just know that I believe in you and you can borrow my belief. And please realize you are so much more than a number. You are a beautiful, amazing human being who is loved by all of your family and friends, and you are invaluable, and you are so much more than a number. So don't let the scales dominate your headspace. Don't let them belittle you or dictate your emotions for the day. And like Luke has said over and over again, losing weight, my friends, is all about gaining life. Screw the scales, let that go. Losing weight is about gaining life and living the life that you've always wanted to live. And that might manifest a little differently than you think.
Do you want to go ahead and give yourself a little shout out where people can find you, website, whatever the case may be, Instagram?
As Luke mentioned, if the easiest thing might be, since you guys are listening to a podcast, my podcast, as he said, is called Real Life Weight Loss. So you can definitely check it out there, Real Life Weight Loss. And then if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm Corey Little Coach. That's Corey, Corey Little Coach. And then my website is Corey Little Coaching with an ING on the end, CoreyLittleCoaching.com. And so, man, I love to hear from you guys. If don't hesitate, I'd love to get a message from you, and give my podcast a listen if you get a chance. But whatever you do, don't quit listening to Luke, because Luke is incredible and he's got an amazing story to share.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, we could go for another 2, 3, 4 hours if we let it. I've learned a lot, and I know everything that we've talked about is going to be super beneficial to anybody that takes a listen to this. So thank you.
Wonderful, man. Thank you so much for having me. It was my honor.
Such a great time talking to Corey. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. I'm going to post all his links in the description so you can check him out. Go give his podcast a listen. Yeah, just check him out. You won't be disappointed. Don't forget, my website is lukeloses.card.co. That is CARRD.co. It's got all my links, all my platforms that I'm on, and the loser line is 323-920-LUKE. So that is 5853. Also, don't forget to check out Jake Simmons and the Little Ghosts. All their links will be in the description. Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Bandcamp, all that will be right there in the description. Click on them. It'll take you there. That's another one where you will not be disappointed. If you could, please give me a rating and review on iTunes or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to this. If you can leave a review, please do so. I really love feedback, whether it's positive or negative. I just want the feedback. The thing that will help my podcast out the most is sharing it. So copy the link, send it to a friend, post it on your Facebook, tag me on Instagram, whatever. I would really appreciate that. That will make the show grow the most. I would really appreciate it. As for my weigh-in, make sure to check back in on Friday. I do a weigh-in and a motivational quote. And yeah, so that's that. As always, stay positive, do the work, trust the process, and I will see you on Friday.